The Michigan Medieval Combat Association presents the first Italian preface to Fior di Battaglia, known to the Morgan Library and Museum in New York City as MS.M.383, authored by Fiore di Liberi in the first decade of the 15th century. Translation by Michael Chidester. Read by Matthew Tansek. Fiore Friulano di Cividale di Austria, the son of Sir Benedetto of the noble house of the Liberi of Paramacchio in the diocese of the Patriarchate of Aquileia, in his youth wanted to learn fencing and the art of combat in the barriers, that is, to the death, of lance, axe, sword, and dagger, and of wrestling on foot and on horse, in armor and without armor. Also, he wanted to know of the temper of iron and the qualities of each weapon, as much for defense as for offense, and most of all matters of mortal combat. Also, other marvelous and occult things that are apparent to few men in the world, and are very true things and very great for offense and defense, and things that cannot fail you, so easy are they to do, which art and mystery is described above. And the aforesaid Fiore did learn the aforesaid things from many German masters, also from many Italians in many provinces and in many cities, with great fatigue and with great expense, and by the grace of God from so many masters and scholars, and in so many courts of great lords, princes, dukes, marquises, and counts, knights, and squires did he undertake this art, and the aforesaid Fiore was more and more times retained by many lords, and knights, and squires, for learning from the aforesaid Fiore to do the art of fencing and of combat in the barriers to the bitter end, which art he demonstrated to many Italians, and Germans, and other great lords that were obliged to combat in the barriers, and also to countless that were not obliged to combat. And of some that have been my scholars, that have been obliged to combat in the barriers, of these I wish to name and make here a remembrance. And the first notable and gallant knight is Sir Peter von Grunen, who was obliged to combat with Sir Peter Cornwald, who were both Germans, and the battle was required to be at Perugia. Also the valiant knight Sir Nicolo the German, who was obliged to combat with Nicolo the English, and the field was given at Imola. Also the notable, valiant, and gallant knight Sir Galeazzo Cattaneo de Grumelli, called de Mantua, who was obliged to combat with the valiant knight Sir Beauclerc Jean II Le Mangre of France, and the field was at Padua. Also the valiant squire Lancelotto Baccaria of Pavia, that was 6 thrusts of soft iron lance on horseback against the valiant knight Sir Balthazar von Bonschwig Grubenhagen, a German, and also obliged to combat in the list, and this was at Imola. Also the valiant squire Giovannino da Baggio of Milan, who, in the castle in Pavia, with the valiant squire Cyrano the German, struck 3 thrusts of soft iron lance on horseback, and then on foot he made 3 blows of axe, and 3 blows of sword, and 3 blows of dagger, in the presence of the most noble Lord Duke of Milan, and of the Lady Duchess, and of countless other lords and lady. Also the cautious knight Sir Azone de Castelbarco, who once was obliged to combat with Sir Giovanni de Ordelaffi, and another time with the valiant and virtuous knight Sir Giacomo de Bossan, and the field was set at the pleasure of the Lord Duke of Milan. These and others have I, Fiore, taught, and am very content, because I have been well remunerated, and I have had the honor and the love of my scholars and of their relatives. Also I say that to whom I have taught this art, I have taught secretly, and there was no person other than the scholar and some close relative of his. Also that those who were present and sworn with sacrament, that they would not reveal any play that they had seen from me, Fiore. And most of all have I been wary of fencing masters and of their scholars. And they, that is, the masters, out of envy, challenged me to play at swords of sharpened edge and point, in arming jacket, but without any other armor save for a pair of chamois gloves. And all of this was because I did not wish to practice with them, nor did I wish to teach them anything of my art. And this misfortune occurred 5 times that I was so required, and 5 times for my honor I convened to play in strange places, without relatives and without friends, having no hope in anything other than in God, in the art, and in me, Fiore, and in my sword. And by the grace of God, I, Fiore, remained with honor and without lesions in my person. Also, I, Fiore, said to my students that were obliged to combat in the barriers, that combat in the barriers is a far lesser peril than combat with a sword of sharp edge and point in arming jackets. Because for him that plays at sharp swords on a single cover that fails, that blow gives him death. And one that combats in the barriers and is well armored, he can receive several such strikes, and can still win the battle. Also, there is another thing, that only on rare occasion does someone perish because of grabs and holds. Thus I say that I would sooner combat 3 times in the barriers than just 1 time with sharp swords, as I said above. And I say that a man being well armored for combat in the barriers, and knowing the art of combat, and having all the advantages that he can take, if he is not valiant, then he will wish to hang himself. Well, I can say that, for the grace of God, none of my scholars in this art have been lost. That always they remained with honor is this art. Also, I say that I predict that these lords, knights, and squires to whom I have demonstrated this art of combat are content with my teachings, and did not wish any other master than the aforesaid Fiore. Also I say that none of these scholars here named had any book about the art of combat other than Sir Galeazzo di Mantua. Well did he say that without books no one will ever be a good master nor scholar in this art. And I, Fiore, confirm it. This art is so long that there is no man in the world with such a great memory that he can hold in mind, without books, even a 4th part of this art. And I grant that knowing more than the 4th part of this art, I would not be a master. Thus, I, Fiore, knowing how to read and write and to draw, and having books on this art, and having studied it for 40 years and more, yet I am not a very perfect master in this art, though I am well held by the great lords that have been my students to be a good and perfect master in this art. And I do say that if I had studied 40 years in civil law, in canon law, and in medicine, as I have studied in the art of fencing, then I would be a doctor in those 3 sciences. But in this science of fencing, I have had great contentions and strain and expenses just to be a good scholar, as we said of others. Considering, as I said before, that in this art I could find few masters in the world, and wishing that there be made a memory of me in this art, I will put all the art and all things that I know of iron and of temper and of other things in a book, following that which we know how to do for the best and for the most clarity. We commence this book following my intellect, in such a way that anyone can know to understand easily, and we make comparison of 5 things, that is, 1. Of masters that stand in guard. 2. Of masters that are remedy. 3. Of scholars. 4. Of players. 5. Of contraries to masters and to scholars. The masters stand in positions, that is, guards, that which are called both positions and guards. Positions are called such because they position one, and guards are called such because they guard one from an enemy, and as such they are called positions and guards for their strength. That poorly will one be able to break the positions on purpose without coming to danger. The masters that stand in guard stand one against the other, without touching one weapon against the other. And here the masters will bear crowns on their heads. The other crowned masters that will be after them also bear crowns, and they are called remedy masters. Those that here play with these masters and with their scholars are called players. And the scholars of these remedy masters bear a device under the knee and initiate the cover and holds following what the master remedy does. And doing such plays that the remedy master knows how to do, at the end will be found the counter of the remedy master and of his scholars. And this counter bears a crown on his head and a device under the knee, because he is the counter of the master and of the scholars, and as such he bears the devices of both the remedy master and all his scholars. In some plays the counter will be found immediately after the remedy, and in some plays the counter will be found after all the plays of the remedy master. Know that here the counter which is made to the remedy master, that the counter breaks all of the plays of that cover or grip that he makes. In the following you will find them well depicted and written so that can be easily understood. And we will commence first on horse with lance and with sword and with wrestling, and afterward with lance on foot, and then with sword in armor, and with sword in 2 hands in wide and narrow plays. Then the play of the axe, and then certain special matches, and then sword in 1 hand, and finally wrestling on foot, and the play of the dagger. And in this way you can see all of the art of fencing in this book, that cannot ever fail you. So well worded are the explanations about the depicted figures.